The war had left the moon base broken and silent. Ash covered everything. From shattered walls to twisted metal, smoke still rose from the ground like ghosts trying to escape. One human soldier moved carefully through the ruins, his boots crunching. On broken glass and burnt steel, he was looking for survivors. Even though command had said there were none, his flashlight caught something strange. A small pod, half buried under debris, blinking weakly with dying red lights. It wasn't human. Technology. He moved closer, brushing away dust and stone. When he opened the cracked hatch, he froze inside. Curled up like a trembling animal was a tiny alien girl. She was barely the size of a human child, maybe 10 or 11 years old. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing, and her hair was short, jagged, and silver white. She wore a battlesuit, too big for her thin body, and in her hand was a small dagger. She didn't scream or cry. She just stared at him with wide golden eyes. Unblinking, the human didn't move. He could see she was shaking, her breathing fast and sharp, blood covered. Her arm and one leg looked twisted, but her eyes didn't look at her wounds. They watched him like he was the real danger. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. She didn't answer. The dagger in her hand twitched slightly, but she didn't raise it. He slowly lowered his weapon and crouched down near her. "I'm going to help," he whispered again. She flinched as he reached out. His fingers stopped just inches from her shoulder. Then, slowly, gently, he touched her arm, trying to check the bleeding. That's when it happened. She began to shake. Not from pain, but from something deeper. Her whole body trembled like she'd never felt a gentle touch before. Her golden eyes filled with water, and her lips parted in a quiet, broken voice. She asked, "Why?" Soft touch. The question hit him like a bullet to the heart. He realized something in that moment. This girl was not just injured, she was trained to fight. Trained to fear, she wasn't used to kindness. Only commands, orders, and punishment. She wasn't raised, she was made. Her small body was covered in old scars. Some were burns, some were cuts, some looked like they came from needles. This was not a child who had ever been hugged. This was a weapon that had somehow survived the battle. He gently wrapped her arm in gauze, doing his best not to cause more pain. She didn't resist, but her eyes never left his face. Watching, waiting, still unsure. Every time he touched her, she shook again. Like she was trying to understand something new, he gave her water, and she looked at the bottle like it was a trap. She sniffed it, hesitated, then finally took a sip. Her eyes widened maybe at the taste, maybe because it wasn't poisoned. Then she whispered something else. "Name?" He pointed to himself. "Human soldier," he said. "You?" She looked down, confused. "No name." "Just 47, she said. His chest tightened. "A number, not a name, just a tool to be used." He nodded slowly, but inside, his anger burned, not at her, but at whoever had done this. He picked her up carefully, and she didn't fight. Her head rested against his chest, and he felt how light she was, too light, as if she hadn't eaten in days. She was a soldier, yes, but also just a girl. Outside the pod, the wind had picked up, carrying the smell of fire and war, but he held her close, protecting her from it. He didn't know who she was or why she was here. But he knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going back to whoever made her shake like that. She wasn't just a warrior. She was someone who had never been held like she mattered. And when he touched her, like she was precious, she shook not from fear, but from something she had never felt before, care, and that changed everything. Asterisk, the small alien girl didn't speak much during the ride back to the human camp. She sat quietly in the corner of the transport, wrapped in a blanket too big for her. The human soldier watched her from across the room. Every sound made her flinch. Every movement made her eyes dart toward the exits. She was always ready to run, always ready to fight when the transport landed. She didn't step out until he offered his hand. She looked at it for a long moment, then slowly placed her trembling fingers into his. The human camp wasn't a battlefield. But to her, it still felt like a trap. Soldiers looked at her with curiosity, some with concern, some with fear. She kept her head low and followed closely behind the man who had saved her. He led her to the medical tent. The doctors were gentle, but she refused to lie down. Only when the human soldier sat beside her and held her hand again did she allow the exam. They scanned her injuries: fractured leg, broken ribs, deep cuts, and signs of long-term stress. But what shocked them more were the marks on her backlines. Of scar tissue, old wounds reopened again and again. "She's been through hell," one medic whispered. "She's just a child," another muttered, shaking their head. But when she heard that word child, she looked confused. Her voice was soft, unsure. "I am Unit 47, she said. "No child." The human soldier knelt in front of her. "You're not a unit," he said. "You're alive, and you're free now." She blinked. Like she didn't understand the word free, it wasn't part of her world, not yet. That night, she sat alone near a heater in the corner of a quiet room. She didn't sleep, just sat staring at the shadows, her knees pulled close to her chest. The human soldier watched her from the doorway, not wanting to scare her. He placed a plate of warm food on the floor and stepped back. Slowly, she crawled toward it, sniffed it like an animal. Then took a small bite. Her eyes lit up, surprised by the taste. She ate fast, like she didn't know when she'd eat again. Then, with her mouth still full, she asked, "What is this?" "Soup," the man said, with a gentle smile. "It's just soup." She nodded slowly, like she was trying to remember the word. When she finished, she looked at him and asked, "Why? Give me this." He paused, then said, "Because you're not a tool. You deserve warmth, food, care." Again, her lips moved like she wanted to ask more. But the words didn't come. Later that night, she finally slept, but sitting upright, her knife still in hand. She didn't trust beds, didn't trust softness. Even in sleep, her body stayed tense, ready to fight, ready to flee. She had never known safety. Only missions, training, pain, and orders. The next day, he tried talking to her more. He showed her pictures of earth animals, simple books, soft toys. She stared at everything like it was strange art. He gave her a small plush toy of Barrett's, fur, soft and warm. She touched it like it might explode, then slowly hugged it close. "What is this thing?" she asked. "It's called a teddy bear," he said, smiling. "It's for comfort." She repeated the word softly, comfort, like it was a word from another world. A world she had never been allowed to enter. Then came the flashbacks. She was watching soldiers train outside when it hit her. Suddenly, she dropped to the ground, covering her ears, shaking in her mind. She was back in a cold, metallic room. Instructors yelling, loud alarms, pain in her side, someone shouting, "Unit 47, get up." The human soldier rushed to her side. She was breathing fast, eyes wide in panic. "It's okay," he said again and again. "You're not there anymore." She clung to his arm like a lifeline, her voice shaking. "Don't send me back. Please." "Not back." He wrapped a blanket around her, held her tight. "No one's sending you back," he promised. "Not while I'm here." She looked up at him like she wanted to believe him, but trust was hard. Later, when she calmed, she spoke quietly. "There were others. Like me," she said. "Small, trained, made to fight. Some didn't survive." Her hands clenched tightly around the teddy bear. "I was good at living," she whispered, "so they kept me." He listened without speaking, letting her unload a weight she'd carried alone for so long. Each word was a scar. Each pause between words was a memory filled with pain. But she shared a hand that was something. That night, she looked at the stars through a window. Her voice was soft. As she said, "I never looked at stars before. Only walls." He stood beside her and said, "You'll see a lot more now. You're free to look, to dream, to live." She didn't answer, but for the first time since he found her, she didn't shake when he placed a hand on her shoulder. The sun was rising over the human camp, casting soft light across the sleeping tents and quiet machines. Birds from the nearby forest chirped gently, a peaceful sound the alien girl had never heard before. She stood at the edge of the trees, watching the world as if it were still dangerous. Her small frame blended with the shadows, her silver-white hair glowing in the light in her hand. She still held the soft teddy bear the human soldier had given her. She was not used to mornings without orders. Back on the alien warship, every day started with sirens and commands. Here, it started with silence, warmth, and the scent of food. Cooking on a fire, still, she didn't fully relax. Even when no one looked at her with anger or fear, she couldn't let go of old habits. The human soldier saw her standing alone and motioned gently. "Come," he said. "There's something I want to show you." She looked at him with cautious eyes, but stepped forward slowly. He led her to a small field where a few human children were playing. They were laughing, running in circles, chasing each other with sticks. The alien girl stiffened at the sound of their laughter. To her, laughter had always meant cruelty or games of pain. She gripped the teddy bear tighter and backed away. But the soldier knelt beside her and said softly, "They're not enemies, they're just kids like you." "Not like me," she whispered. "They are. Light, I am made for dark." His heart sank hearing those words. He said, "No one is made for the dark. Come, just watch for a moment." So she stayed hidden behind a tree, peeking out carefully. Then something unexpected happened. One of the human children, a small boy, tripped and fell. Scraping his knee, he cried out, sitting on the grass with wide, tear-filled eyes. The other children paused, unsure what to do. The alien girl stepped forward without thinking. It was the same move she had used when rescuing wounded teammates in battle. Quick, precise, quiet, she knelt beside the boy and looked at his wound. He looked up at her, confused but not scared. She tore a piece of cloth from her own sleeve and wrapped it around his knee. The boy sniffled, wiped his face, and said, "Thanks." Then without warning, he hugged her. She froze, eyes wide, her body tense. This was not a combat move, not a trap. It was affection, pure, soft, unexpected. The boy let go and smiled, then ran back to play. She stood still, trembling, and for the first time she whispered, "What was that?" The human soldier stepped beside her again and said, "That was kindness." She looked down at the cloth-wrapped teddy bear in her hand and said, "Kindness hurts." "No," he replied. "It's just new. You're not weak." For feeling it, later, they sat by the fire. He gave her a small notebook and pencil, something she could use to draw or write. At first, she just stared at the page. Unsure what to do, he showed her how to draw a tree, simple and rough. She copied it, slowly, line by line. Then she drew something else. A picture of herself, tiny, armored, with a sad face. Beside her, she drew a tall human figure with one hand on her shoulder. He looked at it and smiled gently. "That's us," she said quietly. He nodded. "Yes, it is." Then, almost without warning, she let out a small sound. It was soft and shaky, like a laugh. Not loud, not strong, but it was real. A first laugh. Rising like sunlight after a long storm, he didn't say anything, just listened. She laughed again, covering her mouth with both hands, as if it was something forbidden. "I never laughed before," she whispered. "Is it allowed?" "Yes," he said. "It's more than allowed. It's yours." That night, she stared up at the stars again. Her voice came in a whisper. "When I laughed, something opened inside, like a door. The human nodded. That's your heart learning what peace feels like. She turned her head slightly, looking at him. Why? Are you kind to me? He looked into her glowing eyes and replied, because you deserve kindness. You're not a thing, not a weapon. You're someone. She blinked fast, and one tear slid down her cheek. Not from pain, not from fear this time, from something deeper. She touched her own face, as if surprised. I cry now, she said. He nodded. Yes, and that's okay too, for the first time since she escaped the war. She felt something real, something warm. It wasn't a mission, wasn't training, wasn't survival. It was simply being. She laughed, she cried. And for the first time, she was just a girl. Asterisk, the peace did not last for days. The small alien girl smiled more, slept longer, and spoke softer. She no longer clutched her knife when resting, and her hand no longer trembled at every sound. The human soldier saw the change in her, and it gave him hope. But deep down, he knew peace is never permanent when you're hunted. One quiet evening, as the girl sat drawing under the sun's golden light, the sky above the base darkened, not from clouds, but from the sudden shadow of an alien ship. It hovered like a silent hawk, its dark metal surface covered in red markings, her people's war symbols. Alarms blared, soldiers scrambled, and guns turned upward, but the ship did not fire. It simply stayed, watching, waiting. The girl looked up and froze. Her drawing fell from her hands. Drifting into the grass, her small body went still. Then, stiff, then trembling, she whispered. They came. The human soldier ran to her, kneeling beside her. Do you know that ship? She nodded slowly. That's the Collector. His face hardened. Are they here to fight? No, she whispered. They're here to take me back. The word back tasted bitter in her mouth. Back to cold steel halls. Back to endless training. Back to being Unit 47, inside the command tent. The humans tried to open communication. The alien voice came through a deep, emotionless tone. We have identified lost Unit 47. The voice said, she is property of the Zarn Command. Return her, the human commander answered. She's not property. She's under our protection. There was a pause. Then the alien voice replied, you do not understand what she is. She is a weapon, incomplete, unstable. Return her, or face the response. Back at the girl's room, she sat silently on the floor. She clutched her teddy bear again, as if it could protect her. I knew they would come. She said softly, I ran, but they always find us. The soldier looked at her. Do you want to go back? She shook her head quickly. No, he placed a hand on her shoulder. Then you won't. She looked at him, eyes wide, but they will kill for me. He nodded. Then we fight. Together, later that night, she stood in front of the soldiers. Her voice was quiet, but strong. I know their systems, she said. I trained with their weapons. I can help you stop them. Some soldiers looked unsure. She was small, just a child, but her eyes were sharp, focused. She wasn't afraid for herself anymore. She was afraid for them. They gave her access to the defense systems. She moved fast, fingers dancing over the screen, showing weak points in the alien ship's armor. They won't fire first, she explained. They will try to land silently, send retrieval drones, fast and quiet. She paused, then added, they won't care who they hurt to take me. The human commander placed a hand on her back. You're not alone now, he said. We won't let them take you. And just as she predicted, the attack began before dawn. Small black drones descended from the sky, no guns. Just energy nets and stun rods. They moved like shadows, targeting only her room. But she was ready. She had laid traps, given soldiers the exact time and method of approach. The camp lit up with fire and resistance. She stood in the center of It all, not hiding, not running. She wore light armor now. Custom fit for her small size, she had refused to sit out the fight. I was trained for war, she said. Now I choose who I fight for. The drones reached the ground, but the humans were waiting. The girl gave commands clearly, pointing. Out their weak points, strike the joints, she shouted. Blind them with smoke. She moved like wind. Jumping, rolling, slicing through a drone's neck with a blade she'd sharpened herself. Even as the alien ship above watched, it did not fire. It had orders, retrieve, not destroy. But when the last drone fell, the ship finally spoke again. This is your last warning, the cold voice said. She belongs to us. The human soldier looked at the ship and shouted back. She belongs to no one. She's home. The ship hovered for a long moment, then slowly rose. Within minutes, it was gone. Back into the stars, back to wherever monsters hide. The base fell quiet again, smoke rising from the burnt grass. The humans cheered, but the girl stood silently, breathing hard. She looked around at the humans, some injured, some tired, all still standing. And then she smiled, just a little. This time, not because she was safe, but because she had helped keep them safe too. That night, the soldier asked her how she felt. She thought for a moment, then said, for the first time, I didn't shake. I chose to stay, and in that moment, the tiny warrior alien wasn't just someone being protected. She was someone worth fighting with. The fire had burned out, but the smoke still floated through the trees. The battle was over, and the alien ship had retreated. Humans moved slowly around the camp, carrying the injured, repairing what they could. But all eyes watched one small figure moving among them, the alien girl, the one they once called Unit 47. Now walked with quiet strength. She had not just fought, she had led. Her voice during the battle had been calm, steady. She knew the enemy's every move, and her help had saved lives. But now, in the soft light of the morning, she sat alone by the river. The human soldier walked over and sat beside her. For a while they said nothing, just listened to the water moving gently over rocks. Finally, she spoke. They will come again. He nodded. Maybe she looked at her reflection in the water. Her golden eyes filled with thought. I don't want to run anymore, she said. I want to live here. He looked at her, surprised. You want to stay? She nodded. Yes, but not as a weapon. I want to learn how to be. That same day, the camp's commander called a meeting. Everyone had questions, and most of them were about her. Can she really stay here? Someone asked, she's not human. Another said, she's dangerous, whispered a third. The human soldier stood up and spoke loud and clear. She saved lives, he said. She risked herself to protect this camp. She didn't run when she had the chance. He looked around the room, then added, she chose us, and we should choose her. The commander looked at the girl, who now stood beside the soldier. She did not speak, but her eyes met his, steady and unblinking. After a long silence, the commander nodded. She can stay. From that moment, things began to change. The girl was given a small room with a real bed, her own shelf, her own clothes. She no longer wore armor all the time, just soft fabric. Simple and light. She was still quiet, but slowly. Day by day, her steps grew less careful, less tense. She walked without scanning for exits. She laughed. Sometimes lightly, softly, but real. The human soldier helped her learn to read. At first, the letters made no sense, just strange symbols. But she was a fast learner. Within a week, she was reading children's books on her own. Within a month, she was asking for harder ones. One evening, she sat outside the camp with the soldier. She pointed up at the stars and said, I used to look at them through a ship window. They looked like targets, places to conquer. But now, they look peaceful. He smiled. That's because you're seeing them for you, not for someone else. She nodded, then turned to him. If I stay here, can I have a name? He blinked. Surprised. Of course, he said. What would you like to be called? She thought for a long time, then whispered, Lyra. He smiled. Lyra. That's beautiful. She smiled back, a full smile that reached her eyes. I read it in a book, she said. It means light from that day forward. No one called her Unit 47 again. She was Lyrio, longer a tool, no longer. A number she trained with the other young soldiers. Not as a warrior, but as a student. She helped repair drones, build shelters, and teach new recruits about alien tech. She was small, but her presence was strong. People began to trust her. Not just because of what she could do, but because of who she was becoming. But even in peace, memories followed her. Some nights, she would wake up gasping, sweat on her skin, her knife still hidden under the pillow. The soldier would sit with her, not saying much, just being there. On one of those nights, she whispered, I still feel like I'm being watched. He nodded. That feeling may never fully go away, but it will get quieter the next morning. She helped a group of children gather water. One of them slipped near the stream, and Lyra caught him before he fell. The child laughed and said, Thanks, big sister. Lyra paused for a moment, then smiled and ruffled his hair. Big sister. It felt strange, but it felt right, as the sun set that evening. The soldier found her sitting on a rock, with the teddy bear still in her lap. You kept that, he said. She nodded. It was the first thing someone gave me just because they cared. He looked at her with pride. You've come a long way. She looked at him with quiet eyes. I'm not done, she said. But I want to keep going, and in that moment, it was clear. Lyra had made her choice not to run, not to hide, but to stay, grow, and become someone new. The wind was soft that morning, brushing gently through the trees around the camp. Birds chirped from above, and somewhere nearby, laughter echoed as children played near the garden beds. Lyra sat on a wooden bench, her small hands folded in her lap. She watched the sky like she was waiting for something or someone. Her golden eyes, once sharp and defensive, now held warmth, curiosity, and something new. Peace. She no longer wore armor. Instead, she wore a light blue tunic, stitched by one of the women in the camp. It had a patch on the shoulder shaped like a sun. Lyra's idea. Sun means warmth, she had explained. Warmth means I'm not afraid. She had spent the last few weeks helping around the camp, fixing damaged tools, organizing storage, even guiding new arrivals who didn't understand alien tech. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. But the one who noticed her most closely was the human soldier, the one who had found her. He watched her in small moments, never interfering, just quietly proud. And though he had seen countless battles and missions, there was something about this girl, this brave, quiet warrior that humbled him. She had gone from trembling and fear to laughing with others, from being a number to choosing her own name. That afternoon, Lyra asked to help repair a scout drone. The soldier knelt beside her in the workshop, handing her tools as she adjusted wires inside the machine. You've got good hands, he said. She smiled. Better than shaking ones? He looked at her, and for a moment, he didn't see the child warrior anymore. He saw a person. Do you remember, she said quietly, the first time you touched my shoulder? He paused, then nodded. I do. I shook so much, she said, her voice low. I thought maybe you were trying to trick me, like the trainers did, but it didn't hurt. He looked down at the tool in his hand, then back at her. No, it didn't. She stopped working for a moment, resting her hand on the drone. Then, slowly, she reached over and gently placed her fingers on his hand. This time, she didn't shake. Her voice was soft as she whispered, I still feel something strange inside, like a warmth that scares me, but also makes me calm. He didn't pull away. Instead, he gently turned his hand and held hers. You're safe here, he said, And you're allowed to feel. A tear rolled down her cheek, not from fear. Not from memory. This was something else. Something fragile, something precious. I used to be scared of soft things, she said. Blankets, voices, even smiles. They always came before pain, but now I wait for them. I look forward to them. Later that evening, they sat near the fire pit as stars began to shine above. Others joined them, some children, some older soldiers, and stories were shared. One boy asked, "Lyra, what was the scariest thing you ever faced?" She thought for a long moment, then replied, "Not war, not weapons. The scariest thing was someone touching me kindly." Everyone grew quiet. Then she added, "Because it made me hope, and I didn't know if I could survive hope." The soldier placed a blanket gently around her shoulders. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned just slightly toward him, her body relaxing into the warmth. It was a small gesture, but for her it was everything. As the fire crackled and laughter slowly returned, Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she looked up at the man beside her and asked, "Do you think I'll ever stop feeling broken?" He looked at her with calm eyes and replied, "You're not broken, you're healing." Her breath caught in her chest. Those words sank deeper than any weapon. "I think," she whispered, "you were the first person to treat me like I was something precious." He nodded slowly. "Because you are," he said simply. "No matter where you came from or what they made you do, you're precious. Just as you are." And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Not something loud. Not something sudden, just a quiet warmth blooming in her chest. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. And for the first time since she'd escaped that cold warship, she allowed herself to rest, not because she was tired, but because she felt safe. The sky above the camp was soft and blue, filled with drifting clouds that looked like feathers. Children chased each other near the garden, their laughter carried by the breeze. Soldiers trained nearby, but the mood was light, peaceful, almost like the war had never touched this place. And in the center of it all stood Lyra, no longer a shadow, no longer a number. She wore simple clothes. No weapons, no armor, just a soft scarf around her neck, hand-woven by a woman she now called a friend. She had changed, but more than that, she had chosen to change. No one had forced her to stay. No one had given her orders. She had simply looked around one day, breathed in the calm air, felt the earth beneath her bare feet, and said to herself, "This is home." That morning, a small celebration had been planned. A new group of refugees had arrived, a few families, some injured travelers, and 2 frightened alien children. Lyra had volunteered to welcome them. She stood beside the human soldier who had found her all those months ago. Now, she was the one holding a medical kit, the one offering a blanket. She knelt before the small alien girl and smiled gently. "Don't be afraid," she said. "You're safe now." The girl looked at her with wide eyes, then whispered, "What's your name?" Lyra blinked, surprised. For a moment, the old memories came back, the labs, the cold numbers, the collar with the words Unit 47. She looked at the human soldier, who gave her a quiet nod. Then she looked back at the little girl and said softly, "My name is Lyra." The child smiled, and something in Lyra's chest felt warm. Not like fire, not like pain, but like light. She had spoken her name, not the one given by others, not the one burned into her file, but the one she had chosen, and it had felt real that night. The camp held a quiet gathering. There were no speeches, just food, music, and a few small fires. Lyra sat with a few human children who asked her to tell a story. She hesitated, unsure, but the human soldier encouraged her. "Tell them about the stars," he said. "The ones you used to see through the ship window." So she began, in simple words. She described a world of cold metal and endless drills. But then she told them about her escape, her fall to the broken moon, the hand that reached into the pod and didn't strike, the touch that changed her, and the voice that called her someone. Not something. When she finished, the children clapped softly, their eyes wide. "You're a hero," one girl whispered. Lyra smiled faintly. "No," she said. "I'm just learning how to live." Later that evening, she stood alone near the edge of the camp, staring at the stars. The human soldier walked up beside her, silent for a moment, then said, "You know, I don't think you're just healing anymore." She looked at him, curious. He continued, "I think you're growing, like a tree that once stood in fire, but now rises from new soil." She liked that. She didn't answer with words, but she reached out and took his hand. This time, it wasn't to feel safe. It was to say, "Thank you." Without speaking, the next morning, the commander of the camp called a small ceremony. He said Lyra had become more than a guest. She had become family. He offered her a document basic citizenship. Under the alliance, a fresh start, a record under her real name. She took it with steady hands, her eyes full of light. When she signed Lyra at the bottom, the entire camp clapped. She looked around and saw smiles, not fake ones, not forced ones, genuine smiles. And in that moment, she knew she was no longer running. She was no longer lost. She was home with a name of her own, a story of her own, and a future she would write, one choice at a time.